Let's get into the newspapers now, shall we? I'll start off with the Daily Guide newspaper. What's on the front page? Major story coming out from the presidency yesterday, but of course linked to the judiciary. So it's executive versus judiciary. Let's see what's happening. Mahama suspends Tokonu Bafuboni, acting Chief Justice. Mahama suspends Tokonu Bafuboni, acting Chief Justice. We know that the story so far is that 3 petitions have been received by the president, same forwarded to the Council of State. Mission there quite simple: to establish or otherwise a prima facie case against the Chief Justice for her removal. Okay, Chief Justice requested to see the petitions and be afforded the opportunity to respond. President Mahama obliged. Chief Justice responded within the window afforded her, and subsequently we understand that following the establishment of a prima facie case in consultation, of course, with the Council of State, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama has suspended the Chief Justice. A committee has been set up to look into the merits of same. But per the Constitution, Article 144, the senior-most judge at the Supreme Court will have to act in the stead of a Chief Justice in the event that there's a vacancy. A Chief Justice is unable to perform their duties. And so, in this case, Bafuboni is the most senior judge at the Supreme Court, and so he gets to act as the Chief Justice until this matter is put to rest and a substantive Chief Justice appointed by His Excellency the President, John Dramani Mahama. So Daily Guide carries the story. I'm sure it will be on other front pages as well. We'll get into those. Mahama suspends Tokonu Bafuboni, acting Chief Justice. Let's get into some other stories. Quite a disturbing one, a gory accident that came from Amanase yesterday in the eastern region. 13 killed, others injured in gory accident. Also here on the front page of the Daily Guide newspaper. Apologize over failed Galamsey promise. This is the NPP speaking. It comes with a picture of Salam Mustafa, the national youth organizer of the new Patriotic Party. And the story says, apologize over failed Galamsey promise. Another disturbing one. Actually, there's several disturbing stories on the front page of the Daily Guide this morning. And I'm wondering what is going on. We need to intensify security in the country to ensure not just security, but also, of course, the safety of our citizens. This one says, JHS student lynched over phone. JHS student lynched over phone. How did we get here? I'm sure when you get the paper, you can get the details. The story is actually on page 3 of the paper. Now just look at this. Man's penis cut off in lover's room. I'll just leave it at the headline. Let me take you to the Chronicle newspaper. Let's see what the Chronicle is saying. Osahene speaks at Kufu Business Forum. Osahene speaks at Kufu Business Forum. Ghana's future can't be built on partisan loyalty. Ghana's future can't be built on partisan loyalty. Now, just to bring you up to speed on who Osahene is, this is the minority leader in Parliament, leader of the MPP's caucus in Parliament, the minority side of the House, Osahene Alexander Kwamena Afenyo Markin. And he's the one speaking here. A story from the Kufu Business Forum that happened over during the Easter period in Kufu. Let me rebuild PZ Market. Brian pleads with Otumfuo. Let me rebuild PZ Market. Brian pleads with Otumfuo. That's the Member of Parliament for Impraiso, and of course the former Minister for Food and Agriculture. Member of Parliament for Abetifi, rather. I beg your pardon. Member of Parliament for Abetifi, rather. Brian Achampong, former Minister of Food and Agriculture, speaking there, asking the Asantehene Otumfuo Sei II to afford him the opportunity to rebuild the PZ market at Adum. Recall that in some past weeks. A fire devastated the entire area, razing shops and, of course, destroying wares. Brian Achampon speaking there. Let me take you to the news center. What is the news center saying this morning? Mahama NDC seek revenge, a retaliation for the removal of Charlotte Osei and others. This is in relation to the suspension of the Chief Justice, Her Ladyship Gertrude Tokonu. And News Center is saying that, well, Mahama and the NDC are seeking revenge, and that this move is a retaliation for the removal of Charlotte Osei and others. Okay, we'll be getting into it. We'll find out if indeed that's what it is, or what other perspectives there are regarding this particular matter. Afenyo Makin returns home with a promise of development for Siame. Afenyo Makin returns home with a promise of development for Siame. City FM, ChannelOne TV donate to rehabilitation centers as part of Easter Orphan Project. Yes, like I mentioned earlier, on Monday, that was Easter Monday, the two stations embarked on a project to put a smile on the faces of orphans, as well as to support rehabilitation efforts of some reformation facilities here in the capital. And so two of those facilities received cash donation of 25,000 Ghana cedis each, as well as some assorted essential items. And then, of course, the Baptist School Complex, an orphanage where we've been visiting for close to 17 years, received a check donation of 50,000 Ghana cedis, along with some essential items. And so the News Center is reporting on that. Thank you so much, News Center, for throwing a spotlight on our quest to impact community and society positively. But the biggest thanks, of course, goes to you, our viewer and the listener, who came out the way you did to support us wholeheartedly and generously. We're grateful to you. I mean, we cannot say this enough. We couldn't have done this without you. And so we say thank you so much, and God bless you. The Easter Orphan Project was a huge success because, once again, you showed up for us, you supported us, you helped us to be able to feed and to sustain an orphanage, and, of course, to support two rehabilitation centers here in the capital. Thank you, and thank you, and thank you. All right. There's another story on here that says government spotlights local investors in sweeping reforms. Government spotlights local investors in sweeping reforms. This, I'm sure it's coming from the Kufu Business Forum. Then you have free education and meals. One woman's gift to special needs kids. Free education and meals. One woman's gift to special needs kids. You get the details when you grab a copy of the News Center. Now let's check out Larry Dogbe's The Herald newspaper. Financial misconduct, controversial judgment, and administrative decisions get Chief Justice Tokonu suspended pending probe. Okay, listen up. Financial misconduct, controversial judgment, and administrative decisions get Chief Justice Tokonu suspended pending probe. So the Herald has gone a step further to ascribe what it believes are captured in that or in those petitions that are seeking the removal of the Chief Justice. And the Herald is reporting that financial misconduct, controversial judgments, and administrative decisions have resulted in the suspension of the Chief Justice, Gertrude Tokonu, and of course she's to face a probe. Okay, let's move on to some other stories. Adum Kumasi fire. Okay, well, let me read it properly or correctly. Adum Kumasi fire site turns battleground for NPP flag bearer aspirants. Adum Kumasi fire site turns battleground for NPP flag bearer aspirants. Okay, so let's check who has been there already. The former vice president and flag bearer of the new Patriotic Party for the 2024 general elections, Dr. Mahama Baumia, has been there. He's been to Adum, made some donation to the victims of that fire incident. The former Member of Parliament for Asen South and flag bearer, Asen Central rather, and flag bearer aspirant of the new Patriotic Party in the lead up to the 2024 general elections, Kennedy Ohene Japan, has been there, made some donations. Now, Brian Achampong has also been there, Member of Parliament for Abetifi, former Food and Agriculture Minister, has also been there. He's actually pleading with the Asante Hene Otumfuo Seitu II to allow him rebuild the PZ market. So this is how the Herald newspaper captures the story. A Dum Kumasi fire site turns battleground for NPP flag bearer aspirants. It should make for a good read. So grab a copy of the Herald newspaper and get the details. All right. Owners of Judiciary in tears as Mahama enters uncharted waters. Owners of Judiciary, and here owners of Judiciary are in inverted commas. So just be mindful of that. Owners of Judiciary in tears as Mahama enters uncharted waters. And of course, we are captured here on the front page of the Herald newspaper. City FM and ChannelOne TV donate 25K and relief items to Iris Place Rehab Center. Recall that I mentioned that we were at two reformation centers or reformation facilities. The Iris Place is one of those facilities that benefited from the support that you gave us. And so they received 25,000 Ghana cedis and some essential items. And then there was a second reformation center that also received some essential items as well as a 25,000 Ghana cedis donation. Okay, so we're grateful to you once again, our viewers and listeners of 97.3 City FM, for always coming through to support us whenever we place that call to you. Thank you so much. Grateful, grateful, grateful. All right, there's another story on the front page of the Herald newspaper that says FDA shifts blame in illegal drugs cover-up case. FDA shifts blame in illegal drugs cover-up case. All right, let's jump into some more newspapers, see what's happening. The Inquisitor this morning says NPP 2024 defeat. Nana carries shame as Achim Mafia struggle to defend him. NPP 2024 defeat. Nana carries shame as Achim Mafia struggle to defend him. Ghana beats IMF reserve targets. There's a picture of the finance minister here. It says Ghana beats IMF reserve target. Your day of reckoning has come. Sami Jemfi to want to me. And Dr. Stephen Opuni here, a former CEO of the Ghana Cocoa Board here, saying that my prosecution was unjust. I was innocent. That's Dr. Opuni there. What's the Daily Gist saying? Mahama sacks Chief Justice in judicial coup, appoints Bafuboni acting CJ. We'll get into the details of that. Baumia starts thank you tour. Baumia starts thank you tour. Brian Achampong assists Edum Kantamanto fire victims with 800,000 Ghana cedis. Phew. Brian Achampong assists Edum and Kantamanto fire victims with 800,000 Ghana cedis. Galamsey minister breaks down. And then you have the ambassadorial list that has popped up. The Catholic bishops are also here speaking. Story says Catholic bishop chases president over Galamsey. Quickly jump to the Custodian newspaper. What's on the front page? Political intrusion threatens Ghana's private sector. That's Osahine Alexander Kwamena Afenyo Markin speaking there. Political intrusion threatens Ghana's private sector. Ghana's day of shame. Demolition man Mahama pulls down CJ. Ghana's day of shame. Demolition man Mahama pulls down CJ. And then you have minority slams Mahama's judicial coup. Minority slams Mahama's judicial coup. Akonta Mining dismisses politically motivated Galamsey claims. All on the front page of the Custodian. I run by you a final one from my end. That's the Informer newspaper. Front page says government hard on Akonta Mining, revokes license amidst serious allegations. Government hard on Akonta Mining, revokes license amidst serious allegations. Baumia and NPP embark on appreciation tour today. Bawumia and NPP embark on appreciation tour today. Promoting good governance, let's raise our leaders from church. Reverend Opuni Frimpong urges, insist politics not dirty. Again, City FM, Channel One TV, show love, donates to 2 rehabilitation centers. And then Nigerian Archbishop makes case for Black Pope. We'll have to say that day that we get a Black Pope. Hopefully, that should be soon. We'll look forward to that. I'll take you online briefly, and we'll take a look at some of the stories that have made it to our web portals. I'll start off from ChannelOneNews.com. ChannelOneNews.com. What are they leading with? You definitely expect to have something regarding the CJ's removal, and indeed it is there. Story says, get it right, or posterity won't forgive us. Tuya Yeboah to CJ Probe Committee. Get it right, or posterity won't forgive us. Tuya Yeboah to CJ Probe Committee. Council of State suspension advice, acidic and dangerous. Council of State's suspension advice, acidic and dangerous. Again, Tuya Yeboah speaking, a former Deputy Attorney General. He spoke on the Channel One newsroom last night, and these are some of the stories that have come from them. Samia Wuku is speaking. He says CJ suspension, a threat to judicial independence. And then you have the minority speaking here also, calling for an immediate reinstatement of the Chief Justice. You get the details of all these stories and several others when you visit ChannelOneNews.com as well as CityNewsroom.com. So get onto these web portals, update yourself, get all the details to these stories and several others. This is Breakfast Daily. Stay with us. When we come back, we get talking. This morning, I have in studio with me 2 gentlemen and a lady. I'll do a quick introduction and then we get into the conversation. Michael Kosi Dede is a member of the Convention about People's Party. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Good to have you. Good to have you. Akosua Menu is here. She was the NPP's parliamentary candidate for the Adentan constituency in the 2024 elections. Akosua, good morning.
Good morning.
Good to have you.
Good to see you.
And then we have Hamza Suini, who is a member of the National Democratic Congress, NDC's communications team. Good morning, Hamza.
Good morning, my brother.
First time here?
Yes, I think so. Thanks for having me.
Good to have you. Good to have you. So the big one has to do with the suspension of the CJ. 3 petitions to the president, same sent to the Council of States in accordance with the Constitution. CJ has had the opportunity to respond, but subsequently she has been suspended. A committee has been set up, giving us, of course, the impression that the prima facie case has been established against her. I'll start with you, Kosi. This suspension of the CJ, or even the petitions to have her removed, and how it has traveled so far, and then we've seen the reaction of the minority and the NPP to it. There's arguments that this is an affront to the independence of the judiciary. Would you share same?
Okay. The question I would like to ask is there a constitutional provision for the removal of the CJ?
There is.
Yes, there is. There is even a constitutional process for removing the president of the state.
Yeah.
So for me, as long as we have not violated any provisions of the Constitution or any process in challenging the office of the CJ, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I mean, some people say this is the very first time. Yes, there's a first time for everything. And there's a good reason why there's a provision made in the Constitution for the removal of the CJ.
That impression I don't think is correct. I think so in our history, one CJ has been removed.
I mean, that was early independence, early independence. But I mean, in the Fourth Republic, it hasn't happened.
Sure.
So a lot of people are saying, look, we shouldn't walk that path. But the problem is, if there's a provision for the removal, there's good reason why that provision was put in the Constitution. And it's not been put there for ornamental purposes. There's a good reason. So if there's justification, there should be nothing wrong with the removal of a CJ. For me, that's my simple position on this matter.
Very well, very well. Hamza?
Yes, sir.
Removal of CJ, suspension so far, committee set up. Bafo Boni, now acting CJ.
Good morning to you, of course, and my colleagues in the studio, and our cherished viewers out there. Like Senior Comrade indicated, you see, we are dealing with the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana. That Constitution was not written by the National Democratic Congress. That Constitution was not written by the Convention People's Party. Neither was it written by the New Patriotic Party or any political party for that matter. It was a Constitution written and promulgated by the good people of this country. And so, and in it, the people decided to determine how to structure their government and how to go about the administration of states as far as our democracy is concerned. And like he clearly stated, the provisions in the Constitution are not meant to be opened from time to time, admired, and closed. The whole objective is simply to make our constitutional provisions operational. And for me, to the extent that leadership or the executive or the legislature or that of the judiciary pursues this path of ensuring that our constitutional provisions are operational, I do not have any problem or whatsoever with it, provided it is done in tandem with the laws of our country. And what is happening today basically has to do with such provision under Article 146. I have listened to all kinds of debates, especially the one coming from our opponents. Here I make direct reference to the New Patriotic Party, and I've noticed that they have raised so many concerns about the president's decision to abide by the dictates of Article 146. And permit me to respond to a number of them briefly. You see, and this is not the first time. I have heard a bit about politicization of the judiciary. This is not the first time that His Excellency President Mahama has been charged to exercise his power in line with our constitutional strictures, especially when it comes to independent state institutions. You remember that when he was elected as president in 2012 and subsequently sworn in on the 7th of January 2013, he appointed Mrs. Laureate Lamte as commissioner of the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice. Not long after, the NPP MPs and another influential person, I think Richard Noama, filed a petition based on the same constitutional strictures, demanding President Mahama to subject Mrs. Laureata to an investigation, largely because of issues that they considered then to be an affront to the laws of our country. His Excellency President Mahama received the petition, proceeded to act in line with that petition as enshrined in our Constitution. Subsequently, a committee was set up under his presidency that eventually led to the removal from office of Mrs. Laureate Lamte. The NPP then did not raise issues about constitutional independence. Because that same appointee was one appointed by President Mahama. And President Mahama was compelled under the laws of our country to fire her. Do you think that left to President Mahama alone, he would have been comfortable firing his own appointee in that manner? But these were the laws of our country that was in operation, and there was no way he could have intervened in that regard. Not long after, the NPP assumed office and decided, under very strange circumstances, to have our electoral commissioner removed from office. We cautioned that, look, where you are going is uncharted waters, largely because of the pivotal role of the Electoral Commission. When I listen to people talk about the three arms of government, the judiciary, the executive, and that of the legislature, and so we should be careful. This defines our democracy. Clearly, they do not understand the role of the Electoral Commission. I have always argued that the Electoral Commission of our country is the trunk of our democracy. Like you have the trunk of a tree, and the three arms of government constitute the branches. So if you cut down the trunk, which is the Electoral Commission, you risk subjecting the three arms of government to ruins. And that's why many of us were concerned. But they never listened. They told the good people of this country that they were acting in line with our constitution and proceeded under bizarre circumstances to take out not only the electoral commissioner, but her deputies as well. They wiped the state clean.
Right.
And so this is their legacy. But today, we have President Mahama. This is not the first time the Chief Justice, Ghanaians decided to petition against the Chief Justice Tokono.
Yeah.
Indeed, under the NPP administration, under Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, a number of petitions went to the president seeking the removal of Justice Tokono. The president decided then that a prima facie case had not been established.
Right.
Today, upon assumption of office, President Mahama is also unfortunately faced with a situation where he has to deal with several other petitions against the same woman.
Is it revenge?
Not one. No. You see, but that's why I gave you the background. If there were already petitions flying against the same Chief Justice when President Mahama was not in office, why would you, by any stretch of imagination, conclude that because today President Mahama is president and there seems to be a continuum in terms of the petitions flying against the same woman, then the President Mahama and the NDC are out for revenge? Absolutely not.
Right.
So today we have not only one or two, but about three petitions against the woman. President Mahama has only acted in line with the dictates of Article 1466 and to some extent Article 1460, and has proceeded in conjunction with the Council of State to establish a prima facie case. And based on that, proceeded to suspend her in line with our constitutional dictates. I struggle to see why the MPP is so eager to politicize this issue.
Even in the face of an active interlocutory injunction application in the Supreme Court.
Is an interlocutory injunction the same as an injunction? Application for same, is it an injunction?
But it's active.
In any case, our laws are very clear. When it comes to the president exercising his administrative authorities, and not just the president alone, you simply cannot place an injunction on it. Even you know that, as a matter of fact. His role is administrative.
Right.
You can imagine what will happen in this country if the courts are to open the floodgates where injunctions can be brought against administrative decisions or actions of the president. This country will not run. It is the same reason why you cannot interfere in the activities of Parliament, especially in the administrative decisions of the Speaker as well, when it is still ongoing before the House. So let us be careful and let us not buy into this false narrative of the New Patriotic Party that this is an act intended to sidestep the laws of our country. Indeed, this is actually an act intended to operationalize the provisions of our Constitution, and that is what it is.
Akusu, let me come to you. The demands by the NPP and, of course, the minority in Parliament. If let me put it this way: are you asking the president not to respect the mandate given to him by the Constitution, because he is constitutionally bound to embark on this process once he has received these petitions?
Good morning to your viewers and everybody here. My co-panelists, I'm meeting them for the first time. And the lovely mischief that Suhini wants to start the morning off with. But I think that I want to give some historical context.
Very well.
You did, right after Kosi's submission, say that we have, in Ghana's history, a CJ has been removed before. And then he clarified by saying that not after the 1992 Constitution was set up. So he's right. In 1960, Kwame Nkrumah took to remove the Chief Justice at the time because he believed that they had been complicit in letting go of the three top CPP leaders who he felt were behind the bomb, the bomb attack on his life. So remember, it was Terry Adamafio, Kofi Crab, and Akweje. And the Chief Justice at the time was Justice Akokosa. So he got rid of him, and Ghana suffered its first notorious case of the removal of a Chief Justice in 1960. Subsequently, right after that, we inched to a one-party state. And when we got there too, he said he had to replace him, right? Ultimately, and he put in Sarkodie Ado in 1964. I'm putting the historical context because the understanding is that the first CJ, who was already there, didn't do his bidding by ensuring that the three were jailed.
Yeah.
But they were acquitted, so he got rid of him by replacing him with Sarkodie Ado. Now General Champon comes, and then Justice Sarkodie, Justice Azukrab is also replaced. Who is he replaced by is a Chief Justice Fred Apalu. That's the history of it. I just want to put that in place because we have to come to what we are discussing today. Now, President Liman comes, and what does he do? There's a spirited attempt to also get rid of the CJ, but he wasn't successful because ultimately a coup happened. Now, President Rawlings, his founder and mentor and all the things that he championed, that yes, they love, yes. PNDC comes and they try as much as possible to somewhat reset what the AFRC had done. AFRC, don't forget, were notorious in executing people they felt had been complicit in corruption and control and state capture, amongst other things. So what did Rawlings do? Rawlings also felt that, you know what, ultimately I also have to appoint a Chief Justice. So subsequently, in 1982, there was a famous case, Kufu versus Attorney General, and who was the lawyer at the time? Do you remember?
No.
The lawyer at the time was former President Nana Addo Dankwa Kufu-Addo. Now, 1992 Constitution. Since 1992, we've had Kufu himself appoint judges after a Chief Justice after President Rawlings has. We've had Nana Kufu-Addo also appoint a Chief Justice. In fact, Kufu appointed 3. Yeah. Nana Kufu-Addo also appointed 3. One,
for who?
The Supreme Court judges I'm referring to. Sophia Ekufu, Anan Eninyabua, sorry, who hit retirement. Once you hit 70, you have to go. Yeah. We know this. Then Tokonu enters the charts. Now, with this history given, you notice that the Mills Mahama administration, which started off with Mills, and then the ultimate beneficiary being John Mahama, who benefited from the demise of President Atta Mills, did not have the opportunity to appoint their own Chief Justice. Now, in their history is embedded in them that for you to ultimately control the country, you have to do what? Appoint a CJ? Yes. Don't forget that. Is that practical? I've glossed over an important fact. In 1982, and when you go to the Supreme Court, you see that the bust of the lawyers, the High Court judges, and Major Akwa that are placed there. The lady Kranting Ado, you have our former General Secretary and 2024 Parliament presidential aspirant, Kwabena Jepong, whose father, Kojo Ejeyi Jepong, was murdered. Then you also have a third, Fred, I think, what's his name? It will come to me. So 3 of them killed. Right. Infamously killed. Why? Because it is assumed that they are the ones who are being corrupt or doing underhand things and subverting justice. Why was this done? It was to put fear in the judiciary and judiciary officers. It was to make them timid. It's no different from what we've seen since they came to power, where you see a national security operative who subsequently came to the national, who caught national attention by having an issue with the former Attorney General. So to create the impression and to let fear come into people's minds that, you know what, we mean business. So this reset is actually a revolution. It's a bloodless one at that, but it's still happening. Now, let's come to what he said, that the fact that it's a constitution, you have to look at it. You don't have to open and admire it. It doesn't also mean that once it's there, you have to activate it at all costs. What I've heard them push the most is something along the lines of she took a trip with her family. And it is simply not true. You know something? If I didn't even know her personally, and I've met her all of maybe 2 occasions in a social setting. One was official and 2 was a social event where she was there. She went to Wesley Girls High School. She's a very respected female lawyer, subsequently having risen through the ranks. There was no question about her principles. That was actually what makes her unique. And of course, her law and principles is rooted in religion. She's a strong Christian. And everything she does, she hopes to walk a fine path, and she's done that. This is somebody who even returned per diem. You want to tell us that she took her family, her husband, and her daughter on a trip. And you haven't even given. Confirmed. It is no, but it's.
We haven't seen the petition.
Listen,
have we?
One of the things that we haven't seen the petition,
yes.
but their spokespersons take to radio and TV outlets to paint this narrative that she went on a trip with their family and is against the rules and is against policy. First of all, there have been Supreme Court justices who were not married. But the provision was made that in the event that one is married, you get 1 free vacation that is paid for, and you get to go with your spouse or a relative. Is that a policy that she has to ignore just because she doesn't deserve it or something? No. But they made it seem as if that one trip is to characterize her as a greedy, insensitive person. But refusing to let us see what was really in the petition. She's responded to it along with evidence and everything. Yet these same people are hopping from radio station to radio station talking. Let me tell you something. People say that ultimately it's the EC they are gunning for. And you heard what he said. He said that the trunk, if we are to put the 3 arms of government in the trunk, he believes that the EC's office is ultimately the foundation. And if you knock it off, that in the way that Charlotte Osei suffered in 2018, then indeed, and that was wrong, then indeed we don't have any moral right to question why the CJ is also going through the process. First of all, we've said it again and again and again. Charlotte Osei's issue, unfortunate as it is, because look, I'll tell you on any given day, women in politics suffer. They suffer a lot. Give women in corporate governance who've risen to the top. It is lonely at the top, and almost always your peers, be it male or female, often don't even get their support.
Right.
So what he's saying is not that it is even her as a target per se. It's just the first domino effect on what they plan to do, which is the reset. And she's not ultimately the target, nor is EC the target. The EC will be a casualty, but ultimately it's the Supreme Court judges. So if they are standing by, folding their arms and saying that, oh, even the woman cry, she's not my friend like that, so let the chips fall where they may. They are coming for you. They will come for you. They will replace them with their own people because they believe that the people there will not do their bidding. Justice will be subverted. The conscience of this country can never live down what is happening today.
Very well.
So if the justification for him today is that Charlotte Osei and other things that happened is the reason why we cannot ignore a certain petition on the CJ. Allow us to also see what went into the petition, because all we have is snippets and their own people with speaking notes hopping from radio station to radio
That's
station.
what they are running with, but
That's
we've not seen the petition officially.
We
so
haven't
I mean,
seen
we can't,
but
we can't base our
she has
discussion on that.
beautifully responded to it. But I'm saying,
Which response also we have not seen.
good, but I'm saying that this is somebody who can return per diem. Why do you want to tell us that she on a vacation? That's one of the things they said was mentioned. But I'm saying, and I'll repeat it, this is not a direct caught in the crosshairs, CJ and EC that are going to be the casualties. Supreme Court judges, they are coming for you. There are nooses around your neck. They will not do a bloody coup like in 1982. There's going to be a bloodless one. They're going to terminate your careers. They're going to throw you somewhere else that you not even want to show up, even to work. But they are coming for you. So this is the time to sit up. This is the time to do the right thing. Let's not be quiet. All these women groups and all these COSs have gone quiet because they feel that is MPP. It is easier to believe a lie told about MPP than it is to believe the truth about NDC. And this is them going back to their revolutionary roots, albeit a bloodless one.
Thank you. Let me speak to Kosi on this seeming secrecy around the removal process. Okay, we haven't seen the petition. The committee that's been set up, it's sitting, most likely will be in camera. So, I mean, it leaves room for some of these speculations, doesn't it?
Yes, it does leave room for speculation, but I think that the process has been put in that way in order that if, at the end of the day, the Chief Justice is exonerated, then her reputation or his reputation may not have been marred. So I think that there is wisdom in the process itself, because during the debate and the setting of the writing of the Constitution, people looked at all these issues and said, why should it be in camera? And I'm sure that they looked at it and said, look, assuming they're going through all these processes, it then ends up that the person is not guilty.
Yeah.
Then you don't end up minding the person's image in public.
But then you don't take the opportunity away from the public to be able to also make their own judgment on what is or what was or what wasn't.
Yes, there's a, you know, in all of these processes, all our court, there are points where they say national security, let's go into camera. It isn't everything that should be put out there in public. And that is why I'm sure the writers of the framers of the Constitution put all these processes in place. So I will not look at it and say, no, so it is time to put everything in public. Maybe we may get there when we say, look, let's put things in public. But it's important that we do not over-politicize. These issues are coming out because we are over-politicizing every single thing in this country.
I agree.
Without looking at issues of what does it bring to the people of this country. We are not putting people's interests first. We are now beginning to politicize every single thing in this country. So that when issues come up into public domain, the first thing we ask is, which political party is behind this? Let's also take a defensive position. Let's do this. So for me, I think it is important that we look at these issues very dispassionately and ask the relevant questions, which is, there's a provision in the Constitution. Is it being violated? If it's not being violated, is it in the interest of the people? Because we all claim that justice must not only be done, but it must be seen to be done. The question we need to ask, and there's been some public survey out there which says that a lot of people have lost trust in the judiciary system. In the same way, a lot of Ghanaians have lost trust in the political parties, in the political system as we have it, and democracy as we have it. So it is important that we begin to focus on the country as a whole, rather than taking our own parochial interest in political parties as though that is the end in everything. So that we are running this country as though the most important thing is the next election. And that does not help this country at all. So professionalism and ethics has been thrown to the dogs. So where people are expected to act professionally, they won't. And everybody is trying to play to the political whims and caprices of those in power. For me, these are the issues that we need to begin to critique as a people. We need to question our political leaders. On all these issues, we shouldn't just say that, because a lot of us are now all bowing to political leaders and say, oh, this is fine, this is... It is wrong. It is completely wrong, and I think we need to look at these issues.
Hamza, I've seen a criticism of the composition of the committee. The argument here is that a certain judge should not be on that committee because of course, whatever interest they may have regarding the CJ and how that may influence or impact their work.
I don't think that it is supported by the law, because it is the Constitution that prescribes the nature of the committee and the individuals whom the President should consider in consultation with the Council of State in reaching a decision to form the committee. So it's a constitutional stricture, it's an injunction on the President to do as he has done. So I don't think that it should even surface as to whether indeed they will be balanced or not, because when it comes to the judges, they are expected to hold some level of integrity, especially when it comes to their work. So I trust that these judges will do just that, as far as our laws demand. But you see, My sister makes reference to the fact that the NDC is not comfortable because we are looking for an opportunity to appoint our own Chief Justice. You see...
Is that what you are doing?
Absolutely not. I am trying so hard. You see, since the beginning of this case, I have been trying so hard to resist the temptation or the invitation of the MPP to make it a political football, if you notice, from the onset. But from 1991 to 1995, Chief Justice Acha was the Chief Justice of the Republic of Ghana. That was an NDC regime. It was the NDC that was in power. 95 to 2000, we had Justice Aban, another NDC person.
Yeah.
Indeed, I think it was only after 2001 that President Kufu got the opportunity to appoint his first Chief Justice. And remember, if the NDC was so much concerned about it, when we came into power in 2009, Justice Theodora Wood was the Chief Justice of the Republic of Ghana. We had every opportunity then to have ousted her, especially considering the conduct of the judiciary with the Chatuchikata trial and the unethical interference of the President of the Republic then and our immediate past President, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. But even we resisted the temptation to go on the tangent of vendetta to get Georgina Woods out. Indeed, President Mills worked with her and President Mahama continued.
So
that tells you.
Why get
that is the point I'm making. That tells you that when it comes to the NDC, when it comes to Ghana, our policies are not driven by vendetta or partisan interest. It is always about the national interest. So today, if you find the NDC president in the person of President Mahama, who has been given the nod to lead by the good people of this country,
but has never appointed a CJ.
Absolutely. We are not talking about the appointment of a CJ. I'm just giving you basis that the NDC had every opportunity to have appointed one.
Yeah.
Even when the opportunity was more inviting, we didn't take it. How much more now? We all know how the NDC reveres Chatuchikata. And you know our position on his arrest and subsequent incarceration. Remember, we organized forums in this country, invited international lawyers who spoke on the glaring injustice that surrounded his incarceration. It was known in this country. But we did not even go the extra mile of subsequently taking out Georgina Woods. We left her there. That is the kind of party we are talking about. So today, if the same party is in power and we are faced with a situation where we have to take out a Chief Justice, in any case, the person who is going to act now, was he appointed by the NDC to the Supreme Court? Justice Bafo-Boni. Justice Bafo-Boni was appointed by President Kufu. We also had every golden opportunity to have sidestepped Justice Bafo-Boni and proceeded to appoint Puaman JSC. Because Puaman JSC was appointed by His Excellency John Dramani
But
Mahama.
Bafo-Boni is not an appointment, is it? He's only acting.
But that is the
CJ
point I'm
based on
making.
the
He is
constitutional
acting
provision.
on the CJ, but
Article 144.
you know that when it comes to who acts on the CJ, the president has a say. You know as a matter of fact. And these are the facts. So this attempt to say that, oh, we are looking for an opportunity. Also, when they removed, you see, sometimes when the MPP is talking and they are putting certain tax on the NDC, then it gives you an inclination as to their reasoning pattern
For doing something.
for
they
doing
did.
certain things in the past. Because clearly, you never had the opportunity to appoint an electoral commissioner. So today, Akosua is just telling the whole people of this country that their decision to take out Charlotte Essay was simply because since 92, they never got the opportunity to appoint an electoral
ECJ.
commissioner. That is a tacit acceptance. And so they are trying to put the attack on us. They think that we reason and act like the way they do. It is always about their partisan, selfish interests. But when it comes to the NDC, it is always about our national interests. And so they must begin seeing us in that light. And again, he talks about intimidating judges. How is this connected to intimidation? When you decided to clean the state at the Electoral Commission, were you intimidating the Electoral Commissioners? You claim that you are doing so in tandem with the law. So how is invoking a constitutional structure by citizens of this country, based on which the president has
Are we
proceeded?
doing equalization here?
No, but that's what I'm trying to respond to. That's what I'm telling you, that it's not about equalization. Those petitions, are they filed by NDC people?
Well, we do not know. We haven't seen the petition.
Exactly. So that is why I'm saying that we cannot be talking about equalization. But in the case of Charlotte, I say we know those who championed it. Indeed, my own evidence lecturer at Ghana School of Law was one of the leading proponents of the removal of Charlotte Osei, and was subsequently made a government spokesperson, the MPP spokesperson and leader of their governance committee for the 2024 general elections. Matthew Opoku Prempeh, a known MPP operative. So, but even with that, you argued and told the good people of this country that it was about the constitution. We respected it. Today, the good people of this country have decided to invoke our constitutional structure, and you have a problem with it. Then she made reference to the content of the petition. As a lawyer, and as a matter of principle and fidelity to the rules of our constitution and our principles of law, I have tried so hard to refrain from attempting to comment on the contents of a petition that I have not seen.
You have not seen, exactly. Yeah.
That is my position on this, as to whether people can decide to say whatever they want to say. I know that the first statement about the purported travel of the Chief Justice came directly from Frank Davis, their legal person at the MPP head office. And so if you see NDC communicators responding to it, it is not as if they are putting out there the contents of the petition. They are simply responding to what Frank Davis organized a press conference to put out, and even sat on another sister station to put out. But based on my training, I am unable to confirm or deny that allegation until such a time that I'm privileged enough to see the contents of the petition. I still want to be committed to the principles of our law and ensure that at least we protect the sanctity of the process.
Sure.
But finally,
wrap it up for
yes,
me.
I'll
Wrap
do.
it up for me.
I have always argued that, and the greatest of respect to people who are challenged in terms of hunchback, it has always been my position that the NPP as a political party is Ghana's hunchback as far as our democratic process is concerned. It makes it difficult for us to stand straight on our feet and walk as we should as far as our democratic journey is concerned.
How so?
Every step of the way, from when the petition was filed, even before President Mahama acted, it was the MPP that organized the first press conference, telling him that he shouldn't act, as if that was not enough. They are so-called Ablakwa photocopy, who is trying so hard to mimic the Honorable Okujudo Ablakwa. Vincent Asafo, yes, that's how I see him. They are all trying to reflect the life of the Honorable Okujudo Ablakwa in opposition. That same gentleman.
They're only exercising their oversight.
They should do so, but I don't have a problem with that. That same gentleman decided to use our former Attorney General. And you know, senior comrade, that perceptions were arrived in the media about the unholy alliance between the then Attorney General and the current Chief Justice. In the midst of that, you decided to use your member of parliament, proceeded to use that same Chief Justice. And this game is about perception.
Same former AG.
Same age, former AG. To court to challenge the processes that eventually would lead to the suspension of the Chief Justice. All MPP. So you started politicizing the game from the
But he's still a practicing lawyer.
He is still a practicing lawyer, but there are so many lawyers in the MPP who are not known or who are not politically exposed.
But if I weigh my options, and I think you serve my interest better.
It is not for nothing that even in our laws, we have what we call politically exposed persons. And there's a restriction in the manner in which they conduct themselves. So he ought to have known better. In any case, he wouldn't know better, because this is the same gentleman who, as AG, decided to cross the border and was engaging accused persons.
Well, we're not discussing him here. He's
Yes,
not
we are not.
himself,
But I'm just making a point.
Yes,
That's
and I
an
need you to land.
So that was how it started. Then you proceeded on the basis of that, again, to organize another press conference, partisan in nature, calling on the president not to act. Their minority leader, Afenyo, a constitutional injunction. So from day one, the appetite to protect the Chief Justice was clear. And if you look at the nature of appointment of the Supreme Court judges today, Madam Tokono was appointed somewhere 2019, brought to the Supreme Court, and in no time made the Chief Justice of Ghana over her seniors. What was the motivation? I would also be right to sit on this table and argue that clearly the appointing authority then had a partisan intention of doing so. Because in this organization that you run, on City ChannelOne TV, if someone walks in tomorrow and suddenly elevated over you, those of you who have worked here in years, how would you feel about it? We have organizational culture.
If there's merit in there, why not?
How can they be merit? If you have sat on the bench for close to 10 years, Justice Bafo sat there for over a decade, and someone comes less than a year or two, promoted to be Chief Justice over him, and the likes of poor man, and we all know, those of us who are in the profession, we know that experience comes from practice.
Practice, yeah.
And we respect seniority in law. You know that as a matter of fact. So, if there's anybody trying to politicize our judiciary, it is a new patriotic party, my sister and co. But I can assure them that the NDC will and the good people of this country will continue to act as a disinfectant to their unethical attempts to infiltrate our state institutions and turn them to political breeding grounds as far as their party is concerned.
They argue that the MPP has elected themselves spokespersons for the CJ.
You know, the same constitution that he says gives room to remove the CJ, the same constitution that also allows an injunction to be placed on the process. All his argument in summary has been equalization. You did this, you did this, you did that, and therefore you cannot question. And so we will do same. That's essentially what he said. Look at the committee that sat on her so-called suspension, right? He just mentioned Justice Puamang, that's his name. PNC General Secretary.
Point of correction, no committee sat on her suspension. There is no committee.
No, for appointed, sorry, the setup of the committee. He knows what I'm referring to.
The President in consultation with the Council of State proceeded to set up a
committee. But we know that that was also influenced. So you have Puamang, who is the General Secretary of the PNC. You have infamous Domlevo, who is also there. Then the last person, I was trying to remember who the last person was. Oh, former Speaker Do Ajaho.
Yeah.
No problem. Now you tell us that, and he says that our spirited defense and information as let out by Frank Davis is what gave information that they felt compelled to defend. Now, the very person that you are talking about, don't forget that we've heard them say that she's politically exposed. Haven't you heard them say, ultimately, aside the petition that was that we haven't seen, but snippets of it keep leaking, is the fact that they claim she's politically exposed. If the president has a president at any point in time has the opportunity to appoint Supreme Court judges, just the appointment alone makes you politically exposed, because you are being appointed by the president. The president also represents a party, and once the president is in power, clearly a ruling party is in place. Now let's talk about Justice Bafo, and as far as political exposure is concerned, his brother is the owner of Radio Gold. Another brother was implicated in the NCA. That's not his brother. The Bafo Radio Gold is not his brother.
I cannot confirm
that.
Okay.
That's inaccurate. But he was not even, the late Bafo was not even the owner of Radio Gold.
Please, brother of please, it's out there, so you'd have to speak to it. I know that.
I'm telling
you. It is linked. It is linked to it. Brother of Eugene Bafo NCA issue where they got jailed. Then last but not the least, it's also claimed that he's the husband of the prison service boss, Patience Bafo. So who was appointed by who? The president. What is more political exposure than this? You can talk about merits and amongst other things, and that's fine. If that goes into the decision of who becomes the Chief Justice. But I am saying that whatever petition it was and its content, so far as what has been out there is concerned, sounds petty and frivolous at best, because the person of Gertrude is Saba Araba Tokonu, a Wesley Girls High School alumna, a woman who has walked a fine path in law, who breathes law, who has no scandal against her, but for what they've done. And what they do, and I'm saying that it is part of the process, Didn't we see that Attorney General engaged in high-profile propaganda when he brought the NSB boss and the issues therein? High-profile propaganda to scare people. And I'm saying that ultimately, it's not even the EC. Telling us the EC is the architecture of running the states. What decisions that the EC take aside conducting the elections and making sure the album is good? You've consistently you've equated the EC to the Chief Justice, really. You are going to deny people justice because you're going to put your people in place and you're going to do the bidding of the president. And if they fail to do it, only God knows what will happen to them. So that is what they intend to do. When he was talking, he said, oh, NDC has appointed Chief Justice before. I was clear in my earlier submission that the Mills Mahama administration did not have the opportunity to appoint a Chief Justice. Now, if you say that Georgina Wood also, you could have removed her, you tried. In fact, when they tried, people who had conscience at the time rose up and said, hey, you dare not touch it. Based on what? But now those people have found their way into government, into positions, and they are quiet because they are eating. So we will not expect them to speak. But ultimately, we will all suffer for it. The news is around the necks of Supreme Court judges. They are the ones they are coming for. So that whatever cases would arise in the future, even if they leave government, these people will be there to protect them. That is ultimately what they are gunning for. Let's not even pretend
judges at the Supreme Court, not to protect political parties and political appointees.
Fantastic, but with them, you know, he said something, and I was looking at him. I said, Suhini, first I'm meeting him, but he's so calmly pushing a certain narrative, telling us that they take national interest as far as governance is concerned. Look at the termination of appointments since they came to power. A party that preached 24-hour economy and jobs. What business do you have clearing people from institutions and justifying sin?
Appointments which they say were recklessly
Let
made
me tell you,
after
people will
December
take
7th.
these institutions to court. And if they do the reset like they are doing with these judges and whatnot, all those cases will be thrown out. That's what they are looking at. People will go to court on these cases. And the judges have conscience, they'll win those cases. So he cannot tell us that this is a national interest. All he did say, and they conveniently always throw out the issue when it comes to Charlotte to say. When it comes, I say again, in women in governance and women in politics, I know how lonely it is. So I don't like to come at women. I know what I even went through.
Yeah.
So when it comes to women,
So did you defend Charlotte?
I cringe because
Did you
you are
defend her?
putting. I didn't have to defend her.
Okay.
You were there to defend her.
Oh, why not? You are
Her
a woman, I
deputies.
thought that you are
I do not work at the EC. Her deputies who she worked with are the ones who came for her. It wasn't MPP that came for her, and that's a fact that we need to place on record. And we know this, but they carefully sidestep that fact. Imagine working with people and then they come and say all these things about you. That was where it started. So if we make it look like it was an MPP person that went to do it, certainly not. But you kept on hounding that fact and making it clear that that removal is what has occasioned what is being done today because after all, a precedent has been set. That's not the precedent. You are saying that she's the embodiment, the EC is the embodiment of the governance architecture of the country. And I reject that notion.
Very well. Granted.
But briefly, I think that
In a few seconds.
Yes, I think that I deserve the right to reply. You see, like I indicated, the NDC or His Excellency President Mahama will not be moved by the effusions of frustration of the new patriotic party. We know that we have a social contract with the good people of this country. And under that contract, they have certain expectations. So what worries us, anytime we take a decision, is whether the decision we are taking is in tandem with the laws of our country, and whether we can account to the good people of this country as far as those decisions are concerned. For the politics, the MPP can continue to play their politics. But my caution to the good people of this country is that they must understand, listening to them now, that the agenda to take them out of power as a way of punishment is only 30% of the work required to actually hold them accountable. Because out of power, they are even poisoned more to do damage to our democracy. And that is the most important part that we must pay attention to. And you see, it is not enough to hold the ruling government accountable, but we must also begin holding them accountable because their actions today seem rather to be portraying to everybody that their actions surrounding decisions they took in the judiciary were clearly partisan, not even political, partisan. And that is worrying. Are you therefore surprised that Afrobarometer report, we didn't bring it out. They indicated in their findings that Ghanaians have lost confidence in our judiciary. CDD came out with the same report. Their own Nana Komia, spokesperson to their campaign in 2024, had cause to make that statement publicly under Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo that indeed people had lost confidence in the judiciary of Ghana. That was their legacy. So if the good people of this country today see an opportunity to inject some level of sanity and confidence back into that judiciary, and they take advantage of that, the NDC has nothing to do except to champion the interests of the good people of this country.
I think we are over-politicizing.
I'm just telling you that if the good people of this country, are they politicians?
No.
If they demand of their president, who coincidentally happens to be a flag bearer of the NDC in the last election, if the good people of this country demand of their president that because of this series of surveys that shows that there's waning confidence in our judiciary, there's the need for some accountability, and decide to invoke our laws of the country to demand that the president gives that accountability, how is that political or partisan? It's not partisan.
Could we have engaged for reforms instead of a removal?
Look, it is not the decision of the president to make, and that's the point I'm making. It is the decision of the good people of this country. Why? Is it the president who petitioned himself?
No.
He was petitioned by citizens of this country. And like I indicated, those petitions did not start with President Mahama. Indeed, even when President Kufu Nana Addo was president, Justice Tokono had petitions against her. So why are we creating the impression that this is political? I can understand that the NPP is doing everything to get attention, especially after their humiliating defeat. But they should leave our democratic processes alone. And unless, of course, you don't understand the role of our electoral commission when it comes to our democracy. If you think that the judiciary or the executive or the legislature is more important than our electoral commission when it comes to our democracy, then you must have a rethink. Because without the electoral commission that guarantees free and fair elections that the people can have confidence in, these branches of government will not exist.
Very well. Thank you, Hamza. Thank you, Hamza.
Let me just
briefly, in a few seconds, I need to take a break.
Like I said, we should not, again, over-politicize issues.
Indeed.
One, if you look at all the survey reports about loss of confidence in the judiciary, then the question we ask is, what steps did the CJ take to reform the judiciary to ensure that
please.
confidence can be restored in the judiciary? Because as CJ, you are head of the administration. So if there are reports that say that there's loss of confidence in the judiciary, what steps did she take to restore confidence in the judiciary? These are professional issues. And that is why I think that when people have been appointed to certain roles and they have a term of a security in terms of job, I think that people must begin to act professionally and ethically at all times. How did it happen that the CJ or Ghanaians lost confidence in the judiciary process and that people could sit down and say, this case is predictable what is going to happen? That the CJ herself was seen as acting politically in the issue of the parliament and issues like LGBT issues, Domelevo himself, and issues like that. How did that perception feed into public domain? So it is important that when people, you see, once you get appointed, and this is what I think that people must appreciate, especially CJ, you have a security of job, tenure. So long as you act properly, no one can take you out. And that is why the process is shrouded in camera. So that, look, no matter what any politician tries to do, if you are found, okay, there's nothing they can do about it. So for me, it is important that people begin to learn to act professionally and ethically when they are appointed to office. Politicians are easy. We can easily point our fingers at politicians. But what do people do? You are a professional lawyer. You have been appointed into a role. You are an engineer. You have been appointed. How do you act professionally?
It's your conduct in that position.
It's your conduct that leads to people making a certain perceptions about the whole institution. So I think that we should try and reduce the politicization of everything and begin to look at people's professional conduct and ethical conduct, in matters.
Let me take a quick break. I'll come back to you. I'll give you the opportunity. This is Breakfast Daily here on Channel One Television. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll continue with the conversation regarding the suspension of the Chief Justice and other matters. Grateful that you stayed on with us. This is the news review segment on Breakfast Daily here on Channel One Television. I'm going to Akusia to wrap it up on the conversation regarding the suspension of the CJ. We have to make it clear that so far she's only been suspended. A committee has been set up to probe. Okay, she's not been removed yet, so let's not jump ahead of ourselves.
It's not been ruled yet, but they rolled the dice. And as they do with other cases, or as they do when they believe they have a case, is they take to the court of public opinion and run down whoever is involved. And that, in this case, it's her. They are chipping away at her integrity, her credibility, and everything of substance about her. Now, I was trying to remember something that he said as far as a certain point he made that I completely forgot because he tried to be chatty on break so that I'll forget. but when it comes to what they are doing, like I said, it's next EC. The EC is not even, it's child's play for them at this point. It will move straight to Supreme Court judges. They are going to make serious changes. That is where they also have to sit up. If they think that it is Madame Gertrude and her ladyship and they don't want to support or step up, then they have another thing coming because they'll be coming for them. And then when he talked about Ghanaians losing confidence in the judiciary, this is not something that started under MPP. Look at the historical antecedents of even the killing of these judges. Till that dastardly act happened, public outrage was against the judiciary because, of course, it was a military regime and they were saying these guys are the corrupt ones. So it's never, in no point in our history has there been absolute confidence in the judiciary. When the MPP comes into power, they try to make things better. When they come, they equalize and make things worse. And we are seeing it. We are seeing it in the governance. The lights don't stay on. Prices of goods are going up. They're sacking people from their jobs. They are making justification for sacking them and saying late appointments, but they are even going as far back as 2022 and 2021 to revoke appointments. So it's the reset is a bloodless coup. That's what we should call it. It has nothing to do with deepening democracy and governance or whatnot. After all, then how would the national security operative go to someone's house without a warrant, break open a door and ransack? Where does this happen?
Very well, Kusia. Thank you. Let's move on to other matters. ECOWAS is 50 years. The launch, of course, happened here in Ghana. We were fortunate enough to host that. Logo was unveiled, a theme was declared. But what is of importance to us is the declaration by the President, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, who announced a new initiative, okay, to offer 1,000 scholarships to tertiary students from across the ECOWAS sub-region to study in Ghanaian universities. Is the President not making one too many promises? Hamza, I'll start with you.
Absolutely not. I think that we are rather fortunate to have a very progressive president who looks deeply into the future and decides to come out with policies that prepares us for that future. You remember that his first term as president, when the MPP made all the noise about Dumso, he told us that though Dumso was known by everyone to be an age-long problem, he was committed to solving it. And he was going to be meticulous in that regard. And it took him close to a year to put in the necessary investments in the energy sector that at the time, as a country, we did not appreciate. But soon after that, when the MPP won power, remember that they started complaining about excess capacity because the president had prepared us in such a way
as well as unfavorable agreements.
Yes, the agreements were favorable. Most of them were both operate and transfer. That is why we have the likes of Car Power today being owned by the Republic of Ghana.
But same has been linked to the energy sector debts.
that cannot be appropriate. And we have made that point. I don't want to divert to that sector, but clearly, I'm just telling you that these were novel initiatives that even positioned Ghana to be able to export power and gave us an opportunity to prepare for any industrial expansion where we wouldn't have to look over our shoulders because of issues of electricity. Unfortunately, our friends from the other side came, rolled back the clock of progress in that regard. But that has always been President Mahama. He looks into the future. When he assumed office, the first thing he did was to travel to the Sahel areas because of how close they are to our borders, and most importantly, the existential threat that could cause the Republic of Ghana, if not handled well. He's proceeded to appoint an envoy to man the affairs of these states. He also understands that within Africa, indeed, it is not enough for us to keep saying that Ghana is the gateway to Africa. We must operationalize it. We must put it into action. And the only way to do so is to open our doors to attract the very best from the continent. Because if you see what is happening in the Western world, the United Kingdom and the United States of America, that is what they do. They open their doors. We all rush in there applying for schools to get into those institutions, and they even give scholarships. What they do is simply an avenue of brain drain, finding ways to get the very best from the African continent. Now, Ghana has been the gateway of Africa. We must equally position ourselves to ensure that at least within Africa, we are able to attract the best of brains to our country so that we can take advantage of it to actually lead the continent in the future. And another important advantage of that is that, look, you are not only going to have Ghanaians acting as ambassadors of the Republic, so your political appointees, MPs, and what have you, would not only be the ambassadors selling the country outside. If you have a situation where you have in excess of about 1,000 people coming from different parts of Africa to study in Ghana, they themselves, after their studies, they become ambassadors of the Republic of Ghana. That is how you open up this country for business. That is how you open it up to get the needed international attention so that at least we can increase our foreign direct investments in the country. So there's an economic goal to it, and there's also a diplomatic goal to be achieved.
And then also there's a drain on the public purse. How are we funding this?
You see, sometimes when you do so and you open it and give scholarships, you will be amazed the kind of interest it will generate in Africa, that even you have African students from different parts of the world paying to attend Ghanaian universities. It is a bait. See it as an investment drive. It is a bait for the African continent to appreciate our educational institutions and begin to bring their students here, which will be paid for. You people do it. You call it advertisement. You do it. You find ways of spending to increase your revenue in the form of business. Government is also committed to doing same and opening our shores so that at least we can reap the needed benefits from our engagements within the continent.
Thank you. Because there are Ghanaian students abroad complaining that they've not received their stipends, yet we are offering scholarships.
This one is even a very simple matter. I won't even speak too much about it, but let me just say, correct something that he mischievously said, that in the 8 years that Kufu was in power, he never promoted now acting Chief Justice Bafuboni's wife. In 2021, she was made Director of Prisons. In 2024, in January 2024, she was appointed Deputy Director General at the Prison Service. So she got 2 promotions in the last 8 years. So maybe he doesn't know, but I just want to put it there. And 1,000 scholarships to member states. There are people who are calling me day in, day out, pleading that I help them with their fees because Get Fund hasn't come through. Charity begins at home. Pay the students here. And when you are done paying them,
but you receiving the same calls
extend, it was worse. I don't know. It was worse. It was worse. But now
I like that honesty.
Oh,
I like that honesty.
I'm a very honest person. You know, I'll tell you the truth where it is. It's pay the people here, clear those areas, because you see, when you reset, there are people that were depending on their brothers and sisters to support them in school. You've reset their jobs, so they cannot they cannot help their siblings further their education. So Suhini, this is a passionate appeal to you, since you have the ear of the president, as you clearly articulated his thoughts on why her
offering
ladyship
this.
should go through what she's is going through, although unfairly.
I think that the president is already acting on it. If you look at the decapping of Get Fund that he decided to cap, and even do so with an act of parliament.
You see,
this government has decided to decap it. And I can assure you that in less than no time, we would be able to increase the earnings of Get Fund from about 3 billion to 7 billion. That puts us in a position to be able to pay for the arrears that you have left.
You've never
in terms of the scholarships you awarded. The NDC government has not awarded any scholarship yet since it came into office. You awarded those scholarships, failed to pay for them. And so we are in a position to confront the arrears. And I can assure you that we
government
will
is
be
a
able to pay.
continuum. You are in a position to make those payments this year because we are not there to make those payments. The children are suffering. They are actually quite destitute now. Just pay. Let's not play politics about it.
This
because it's a topic today, so I have to talk about it.
I mean, as Suyini put it, more advertising the country to member states.
No, first, there's no official explanation that I have seen about the 1,000 scholarships. So I cannot speak to the rationale behind it. But I would want to caution that some of these things should not just be done on a knee-jerk basis, where we come out and say, oh, it looks nice. It will look nice on us if we give out 1,000 scholarships. But from a Pan-Africanist position, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think that it promotes integration. And I think that other African countries should do likewise, because we've been talking about African Union for ages, and we're talking about ECOWAS and all that for ages, but we have done very little to promote integration. So for me, from a Pan-African perspective, there's nothing wrong with it, but it is important that it is well thought through, so that it is not just President Mahama saying the next president will continue it, so that there's consistency in an effort to promote Pan-Africanism. For me, that is where my concern is, because when we don't think through some of these things, we take one step forward, 2 steps backward, because another president can say, now we're here, and then leaves it. And then we don't gain anything from it. So for me, let's come out clearly from a policy point and say, this is what we want to achieve with this. Let's sell it not just to Ghana, but to other African countries and say, look, we think that this is a step forward towards integration of Africa and all that. But knee-jerk reactions don't help us. And I think that those are the things that we need, we need to look at.
We need a detailed plan regarding this particular initiative.
Exactly. I mean, just like...
For one, the budget has already been presented. So when does this take effect?
Exactly. There's
what
nothing
budget
clear
will
about
it be captured under?
I think that government will provide the needed information. I share in the,
you see, because
in the concerns of...
When we don't sell these things to Ghanaians first, and all we hear on the stage is, oh, I'm going to give it out. Is it coming from his pocket? It's coming from the Ghanaian taxpayer. So you just don't go out there and go and make an announcement and say, oh, I'm giving 1,000 scholarships. This should have been told Ghanaians that, look, we want to do this, and this is why we want to do it, because to promote this. Then you even, through your ambassadors, begin to talk to Nigeria, talk to the other African countries and say, look, let's do this for ourselves. You see, the world is in a flux now, and we as Africans need to begin to take long-term strategic decisions. Look at what's happening globally. So for me, these are things that we should be thinking deeply about, rather than making things that make us feel good among our peers because possibly somebody wants to lobby to become ECOWAS chairman in the next... I mean, we need to move from the cosmetics. We need to become deep in the things that we want to do. So for me, that is where I want to look at this issue.
I think that I share in the concerns of our senior comrade on the show. And unlike the new Patriotic Party, I would not permit me to say attempt to provide a defense to the concerns being raised. What I can assure him is that, look, I share in most of them. And from this platform, I would get in touch with the authorities that be. The power belongs to the good people of this country. And so if they are calling for better explanation about certain government interventions, it is only proper that we make that available. So I'll get in touch with possibly the Minister in charge of Foreign Affairs and also the Minister of Education to provide the needed basis of the President's announcement. I know, as a matter of fact, that the President couldn't have just walked onto the show and onto the event and start making those announcements if discussions were not held prior to that particular event. So, but I share your concern. And I can assure you that as a government, we will do everything within our power to ensure that we provide you with the needed information. If at the end of the day, the Ghanaian people feel that this is not a policy that should be pursued, be rest assured that President Mahama and the NDC government will listen and we will take a back stage as far as that policy is concerned. But until that is done, we'll get in touch with the necessary powers and provide the explanation to you for us to proceed. But this has nothing to do with the president's ambition of either being ECOWAS chairman or whatsoever. President Mahama has seen it all. That's what we always said. Especially, and he doesn't need.
He has his eyes set on that.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. He doesn't even need the title of ECOWAS chairman to start working in the interest of the ECOWAS bloc. You saw it. Immediately he was elected as president. He started his journey in terms of trying to bring the continent together. He is not the ECOWAS chairman, but that is what responsible leadership is about, and that is what he's doing. He's providing leadership, even though he's not an ECOWAS chairman.
Is he positioning himself as a star boy?
In the past, you see, we promised a reset. In the past, we had a president whose public utterances was so costly to this country that it was even difficult for us to travel to any of the Sahel states. And it subjected government, the country, to a point of ridicule. The NDC promised reset. President Mahama is enjoined by our promise to demonstrate responsibility in public office and to communicate in both in action and in words to the African continent that this is a new Ghana that has gone back to our foundational principles and that what they were used to the last 8 years had nothing to the traditional identity of the Republic of Ghana. And so that is the reset agenda he's doing, because so much damage was done to our international image. So when we were campaigning to be elected into office, it was not simply a responsibility to be concerned about domestic affairs. We appreciated that our international relations had dire consequences even on our domestic decisions. It's a double-edged sword.
What happened to Dufiasem?
No. You see, Dufiasem is not the foreign policy of the Republic of Ghana. Our foreign policy is clear. Dutiful engagement with other countries, respectful manner, in a way that protects the interests of Ghana and projects our identity.
Very well.
That is what we are doing. Dufiasem by the late President Mills was set in a certain context. And mind you, many people, even within the NDC then, had issues with that statement, and they made it public. This is a party that is determined to reset. And so we will do everything within our power to do so. And I can assure my sister that they are welcome to join the train. Enough of the destructive politics we play and the harm we cause to this country. You are having a president who is level-headed, who is committed and ready to serve this country to the best of his ability.
So should we push for more participatory politics?
Absolutely. That is what President Mahama represents. I'm sure over the weekend you saw the hearty interactions he had with the late former President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo.
Would have been very interesting to know.
Indeed,
what they
but not long ago, people have forgotten that President Akufo-Addo decided to disrespect him publicly before our international partners. When he was president, decided to walk over him, not even to greet him, simply because President Mahama was criticizing his government as a flag bearer, as opposition leader then. You remember? That's that spectacle. President Mahama could have repaid that gesture, but he chose to be a responsible leader. That is what leadership is about. Everyone saw that video. Even as a party, you guys have a problem with Nana Addo.
Diplomat. I don't think he will do that.
He will never do that.
You didn't see the video. Are you not denying the existence of that?
Let me tell you. I remember there was last year there was a video where it looked like two public figures had walked past each other, only to discover that they had moments ago actually met and interacted. So the video looked like they were ignoring each other. It wasn't. In this context, it's just something that he wants to use to paint the former president in a bad. Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo will never see John Mahama anywhere and walk past him. It just won't happen. So let's not decide to find you know, this framing that you keep doing. You have to stop framing and start fixing the country.
Start fixing. He calls him Johnny.
The fixing you said you do it. Framing, always framing.
But he calls him Johnny. So you should know they have a cordial relationship.
Do we even see recent pictures in the Kufu Easter,
Exactly.
their interactions
Yeah.
and everything? So, I mean, sometimes you can do the mischief, but sometimes it gets too colorful.
Let's wrap it up with our final issue for this morning. The issue of alleged medical negligence and all that. The president has directed that the CEO of the Tamale Teaching Hospital be sacked over some...
Was it the president or the minister?
The president actually gave that directive, but the minister paid a surprise visit to the hospital.
Okay.
Let me start from you, Kosi. This issue of medical negligence has been coming over and over the period. But what has been missing are the results of the investigations that have been commissioned into SAID. How important is it that we have these results and take lessons from there going forward?
Okay. So, first, I was quite surprised at the decision that the medical director or head of the hospital has been dismissed. Because, again, it speaks to knee-jerk issues. A minister doesn't have to go to a hospital with all that drama, and then in a few hours you hear that the CEO has been dismissed. You sit down and provide policy. If you want to find out what is happening in the hospitals around this country, you have a director of medical services or you invite him into a meeting, sit down and say, what is the status of all our hospitals? What is the evidence that there was negligence? Let's deal with the issues. Look, government, because I heard some of the exchanges on air where he says, okay, government will no longer buy equipment. Very soon we are going to do develop an escrow account where when we provide equipment. Look, only a few years ago, the issue in Kolebu, where there was supposed to be dialysis. What happened? Kolebu administration says, look, it costs us so much to provide this service. So the minimum we can do is that we must be able to recoup the money. Government kept insisting, no. Parliament went, no, you can't charge this. Why? For political reasons. Now you are restraining the hospitals from generating enough income to support the equipment that they have. And yet the same government then goes back and says, you are not maintaining the equipment. I mean, let's be fair. For me, running this country is not about showmanship. Just a few weeks ago, the minister was at Ridge. He had the same spat with administrators at Ridge.
Yeah.
For me, we are running this country as if it is a showbiz. I mean, that is no proper way to run a country. I think I find it very sad that within a few hours, the man is dismissed without any proper saying that these are the findings of a committee. We have established this, there was negligence, and therefore the man is being removed. Simply because possibly the man stood his ground and therefore maybe the minister felt embarrassed. They say, no, we are the politicians who will dismiss you. I think that it doesn't speak well. It doesn't speak well.
So what do you make of the approach of the minister in this matter?
You know, this season 2 of President John Mahama is replete with sound bites, footages. If ministers are not crying to court attention to depart from their abysmal failure in the Galamsey fight, then it's also another minister trying to court the public opinion with a footage of a supposed altercation, making it seem to fight for justice of somebody who has just lost their life. When it comes to the medical space, teaching, education, and health, politics should play no role. We just have to do the right thing. Tamale Teaching Hospital has had challenges. You know, I just quickly searched and I realized that they get a lot of support and donations from NGOs. Most recent one, even from New York City. New York City itself, providing medical supplies to Tamale Teaching Hospital. They get all these supports and other things. But clearly, it's not enough. And constantly there are challenges. Take us, for instance, when we came into power, seeing the challenges women underwent in Kumasi. The former First Lady set up the mother and baby unit in Komfo Anokye in record time to arrest a problem. Why? Because that is the approach. It's not about dramatization and getting footage to put on TikTok and vlogs. No. This gentleman, since that video came out, people have literally eulogized him. In fact, I thought he had died. Saying all sort of things that he's done, how he stepped in, how he's shown leadership. What he did to him is most unfortunate. I've seen his elder brother, or is he your younger brother?
Elder brother.
Yes. take to a Facebook post, and in their, like how he's doing here with soft PR and trying to water down the thing, he's also tried to do that on his Facebook because he realizes the blunder that the minister caused yesterday. It was unacceptable for you to scream and shout at medical doctors. Do you know what they go through? For them to see politicians play with their lives and decisions, and sometimes they're asking for increases in their salaries and whatnot, and only to hear the things that are being awarded through parliamentary processes. What he did was not just, I never want to see it. Right. It's so embarrassing to say in the least. Sure. They should stop this thing of always acting. Maybe there's a flow chart, health, action. Then he screams at somebody, Lance, cry. Then he's crying. He didn't cry.
Movie production.
In fact, I would have expected the defense minister, defense and interior, to hold hands and weep when the woman and the 4 children were killed in Binduri. Those images and videos were horrible to say the least.
Very well.
They have no clue. They don't know what they are doing.
Thank you.
So it's distracting us by chasing this poor woman, her ladyship, Justice Isaba Araba Tokonu. That's what they want to do.
Go around and go back.
Yes, no.
Hamza, 2 minutes.
You see,
2 minutes.
You see, senior comrade, this is what happens to the conscience of a nation. When you become so used to 8 years of bad governance, to the extent that your only labeling of accountability and proactiveness on the state of state functionaries will be deemed showbiz. Because in the past, last 8 years, we never got that opportunity. Our ministers were simply warming their seats. They had no idea of the things that were going on in institutions under them. Because they did not leave the comfort of their offices. They were simply interested in sitting there, signing fat contracts and taking percentages. That is what we've been used to the last 8 years. And so today, when we see ministers going out of the comfort of their offices, engaging institutions under them, ensuring accountability, trying to understand the demeanor and ethical standards of those who work under these institutions, you will be forgiven to think that they are engaged in showbiz. Because in the last 8 years, you didn't have that. So probably you've forgotten. But the ordinary Ghanaian out there needs it. When the minister visited Tamale Teaching Hospital, it was not because he just got up and decided to do so. It's because the inhabitants of the town demanded action for far too long. My dad died in that hospital. I know what we go through as inhabitants. I know the conduct of the management, the disdain and the carelessness on the part of some of them. But let me also use this platform to say that there are many of them who are very diligent. And you see that he had an encounter with one of the doctors. I'm told Dr. Valentine, not the CEO, the videos that you circulated. Later on, when we investigated, and this is how responsible governance is about, we realized that his outburst was not out of disrespect or disdain to the ministers, but largely because of his own frustration. Because even investigations revealed that in most cases, the gentleman, the said doctor, had to use his own resources to buy necessities that the hospital needed. So even the minister and the deputy minister of roads and highways had no other option but to understand his frustration. It was subsequent engagement that exposed the kind of leadership at the hospital that probably resulted in the president's directive to sack the CEO. I can assure you, I've had meaningful engagements with the CEO. He's one gentle person, very humble, down to earth. And so if you see...
But the leadership was...
Probably, maybe the presidency or the ministry has an issue with the leadership. But you see, when you see appointees acting, what the MPP wants is to have us appointees sit in the offices so that they do not get to engage with the people and understand the kind of what they left behind. This is not showbiz. This is about being proactive and ensuring that we hold accountable state institutions under their stewardship.
Thank you. Hamza Sweeney is a member of the NDC's communication team. Akosua Menu MPP's 2024 parliamentary candidate for the Adentan constituency, Michael Kosi Dede, a member of the Convention People's Party. A number of your messages came in. Unfortunately, we didn't have enough time to deal with it. But thank you so much for staying with us. This has been the News Review here on Breakfast Daily. My name is Nana Tufo Boateng. But don't go away. We have more on the show for you.